Hey there, friends. In a continuation of my coverage of the Trump attempted assassination, I want to point out a couple of more things. Of course, yesterday you guys know that the Secret Service representatives spoke to members of Congress in kind of a debriefing, so to speak. And as we've been stating over the last several days, they only muddy the water up more. When they're answering questions, they're answering a question and creating five more. They're never, they're not creating a clear picture of what took place, how it took place, and even what they're doing going forward. Here's more on that. The shooter visited the rally location twice. His cell phone contained images of both Trump and Joe Biden, and the would-be assassin's search history included dates of the Democratic National Convention as well as future Trump events. On the gaming platform Steam, he wrote, July 13th, which was the date of the shooting, will be my premiere. Watch as it unfolds. Now, real quick, I want to point out that I've got question marks since July 13th, right? And daily I have more. I think it's pretty suspect that they're coming out and saying this about him having pictures of both Trump and Biden. Remember, initially they wanted to claim, and rightfully so, there's proof of this nutbag being a registered Republican, even though both of his parents, one is a Libertarian and one of them is a Democrat. He registered as a Republican. He's also on record making a donation to a far left Democratic group. I will be very clear on this. I grew up in a Democrat household, if you can believe that. Now, granted, it's a blue dog Democrat household in South Louisiana. That has changed. There's not many blue dog Democrats around anymore. However, I registered as a Democrat until I realized I wasn't one. So you can't tell me that how you register makes a difference. It's what your actions are that shows what you are. I've never donated money to a Democrat organization. This guy did. So you tell me what his leanings were. But I do believe that the fact that they're now reporting, we don't see the proof, they're just reporting this, that he had pictures of both Biden and Joe Biden and Trump in his phone, as well as searches on the DNC and the RNC. So they're trying to say that, oh, he was mad at both parties, and maybe he was. That's quite possible. I also think this is a very clear indicator that the Democrat Party sees that this has been a massive boost to Trump's own popularity, and they're trying to grab hold of some of that fame and claim it for themselves. In other words, to say, ooh, look, Joe Biden could have been next. See, we're all together in this. See, Trump got shot at. They don't want to acknowledge that he actually got hit, but they say Trump got shot at. And see, Joe Biden was likely to get shot at too. Again, the whole sympathy thing with the COVID diagnosis that he's got now. So they're like playing big time catch up because they're failing miserably, because Trump, everything that has been tried to do against Trump has skyrocketed what his popularity is, and they just see him running away with this race right now. It's also reported that the shooter visited the rally location twice after the Butler rally was announced, including on the day of the shooting. So prior to him actually being spotted an hour before the shooting and called suspicious, he was actually there before that. Based on cell phone data, it was estimated that the shooter was there for 70 minutes during one of those trips. Now, I do want to give a shout out real quick to Mike from Mr. Guns and Gear. Mike actually mentioned probably a couple of days ago that the shooter likely had visited prior to the actual day of the event, or at least the time that he was scanned, because everybody went through metal detectors and whatnot. Mike pointed out that, okay, he had the gun there and it was likely staged there, because the only thing that they found him with whenever he went through security was a rangefinder. So Mike made the supposition that likely the gun had been brought to the location prior to the security perimeter being set up and staged there, stashed there, hidden there, whatever you want to call it. And it looks like he was actually, in fact, right. So either he staged this gun there a couple days prior, or when he went earlier the day of the shooting is likely when he brought it as well. Either way, that makes perfect sense now. And again, hat tip to Mike from Mr. Guns and Gear for pointing that out. They also learned that the shooter had 2 cell phones. The primary phone was recovered from the scene along with a remote transmitter. A second cell phone was found at the home, and it only had 27 contacts. The FBI is in the process of tracking down and interviewing those people. You know, this is one of those areas that I told you, it's just another question mark. How many of you have 2 cell phones? I know some of you probably do. I get it. Somebody's going to go, oh, I've got 2 cell phones. Yeah. Most people don't have 2 cell phones. Most people who are 20 years old don't have 2 cell phones. His job was not one that required a second cell phone. Usually your job will dictate a secondary cell phone, or if you work in security or in politics, right? This dude worked at an old folks home, a low-paying, not management-style job at an old folks home, and he had a second phone. So please miss me with the, oh, I know a lot of people who have a second cell phone. Not in this case. Doesn't add up. Doesn't make sense that he had a secondary cell phone. It's just not normal. And of course, by now everybody has seen the footage of this dude just meandering around in the background, right in front of the building, in the wide open, not sneaking or anything, surveying the area and deciding how and when he wants to climb up on the roof of the building he's right in front of to shoot at the former president. And finally, I wanted you guys to see this little exchange between, actually it's not much of an exchange, it's pretty one-sided, between Senator Marsha Blackburn and the Secret Service director. First of all, my first question would be, when the spotlight in a negative way is completely on you for your failings, your miscomings, and your lies about this super duper crazy dangerous sloped roof, that's sarcasm, by the way. Just for those of you that have been saying in the comments, that's not really a sloped roof. You have to understand the tone of my voice. That was exactly sarcasm. When I say super duper dangerously sloped roof, that was sarcasm. So even after her lie comes out, and it's been proven that even that lie didn't work because the people were in the next building over. Anyway, she was approached by Senator Marsha Blackburn on the premises of the Republican National Convention where Donald Trump was. Talk about returning to the scene of the crime, right? Why was this lady there? What business does she have there? Is she that tone deaf to not realize nobody wants her there? Is she that tone deaf to not understand that everybody is putting this at her feet? Now, granted, she likely doesn't know what's going on. It may be one of these crazy, quote, conspiracies that she wasn't privy to, but it doesn't matter. This is her organization. She's got to be able to read the room and realize nobody wants you there.
This is exactly what you were doing today on the call.
This was an assassination attempt. You owe the people answers. You owe President Trump answers.
Anger at the Secret Service boiling over on the floor of the Republican National Convention. A group of GOP senators chasing down the chief of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, and they are demanding more answers over the assassination attempt against Donald Trump and are blaming the Secret Service for a cascade of security failures.
Friends, I have a very suspect story that's going to have you scratching your head even more and booming out even more questions that I'll put out later on today on this same situation. And let me tell you, this one here has pretty much sealed the deal for me with my frame of thought on where I think this thing came from, how it originated, and why it's being covered up right now.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
It's over.